I've been getting a lot of questions lately about my 5-inch Armattan Chameleon, why I stopped using KISS, raised flight and finally use Betaflight. Why do I use the MrSteele Silk motors on HQ 5x4x3 OG glass nylon props? And yeah, just in general, how I've set up my stuff in the frame. So yeah, let's start with talking about different flight controllers and firmwares. So this is a KISS FC. I've flown this FC with KISS 24 amp ESCs for over a year. It flies amazing, I can't complain about flight characteristics and so on and so forth, but I had weird dropouts, like dead ducks, no failsafes, the quad just fell out of the sky. Like, I can't do anything about it, it just did it randomly. Like, here's a clip. So I stopped using KISS just because I had these dropouts and I've lost all confidence in using the Flight Reno or the KISS stuff. So I started looking elsewhere and I've used race flight, like the race flight re-rolled FC and some old or some TBS 25 amp BLHeli-S ESCs. Like with this setup I had the best flight characteristics and feel out of all different firmwares and flight controllers which are out on the market to date. Yeah, first 3 flights worked amazingly well, the quad felt amazing, but after the 3rd flight I had weird issues like bounce back, oscillations all over the place, like I don't know why. I talked to other guys like to Preston and I've tried different firmwares, but yeah, I couldn't get rid of the oscillations and bounce back. I tried different mounting methods like different standoffs, all kinds of stuff, different wire thickness, caps. Yeah, I couldn't get it to fly well anymore. So I just said screw it, I'm gonna throw that one away as well. And then I talked to a friend of mine, FrSky, I will link him in the description below. And he said, why don't you try Betaflight? So yeah, I started looking for Betaflight flight controllers, and the best one, or the flight controller which got my interest, was the Betaflight F3 flight controller, just because it had like a flight controller, PDB and OST in one board. And I think that it will fit good in the Chameleon frame, because the Chameleon frame is a lowrider style frame and there's not much space to put stuff. So I bought a Betaflight F3 board. Just sorted everything up, did some research as far as what do I have to bridge, and yeah, flashed Betaflight 3.1.7 I guess, or the version before that, and just took it out for a flight. And at first I wasn't very happy with how it felt. Like I had weird like bounces, like the I term is too low, the P term was too low, everything was too low. And then I started fiddling around with the 2DOF PID controller, like the sliders underneath the PID settings, and I pumped them up, everything above 1. I guess 1 is at 2.7, but I will go through the settings later in the video so you guys can see it. And yeah, I finally start to get some stick feel. Now it feels like the KISS back in the days, very similar to the KISS, just because I've set it, or I've worked with those little sliders underneath the PID settings, and now it flies amazing. Yes, and then you also need to like enable PT1 and disable all kinds of filters to get max performance out of the quad. Like prop wash handling is now better than ever. Yeah, but just as I said, I will go through the settings later on. So yeah, let's start looking at the frame itself, what I did as far as modifications and soldering, wiring stuff up is concerned. So this is how it looks like. I'm using 16 gauge wire to connect the ESCs to the PDB, and I'm using 14 gauge wire as a main power lead. Yes, you can use 18 gauge wire, but I do not recommend it because 18 gauge is too thin to transfer 30 amp constant. Maybe if you're running like the Alien PDB where you have very short leads, then 18 gauge might be okay, but yeah, you will probably better use 16 gauge wire. I'm using 20 gauge wire as my signal leads. I don't use ground because I don't feel like I need it. Other than that, I'm using the stock pigtail wire for the Unfiy Pro HV at 5 volt, and yeah, the stock wire for my Runcam, and I don't know, like thinner than I guess 28 gauge for my receiver wires. Yeah, so why do I use the FrSky XM Plus instead of the D4R or X4R FrSky receiver? So I come from Futaba using the TBS Crossfire, but I stopped using Crossfire because I had issues like glitches and just overall phase saves in like 150 meters. In a circle of 150 meters I had glitches and phase saves. I don't know why. I talked to Trappy and I told him that I've powered up the TBS Crossfire without an antenna on 500 milliwatt for over an hour, and yeah, so I might kill the internal RF module. I don't know it for a fact, but yeah, this might be the reason why I have issues, but I had these issues also before I had disconnected the antenna and powered it on. So yeah, I said to myself I will start using Taranis because everybody gets great range and yeah, reliability with the FrSky link. So I started using FrSky, but I wanted to keep like the old layout I had because I knew it would work and look clean, and yeah, so I started looking for a small receiver which would fit the footprint of the TBS Crossfire. And the only receiver I found was either the XM or the XM Plus, but I decided to go with the XM Plus because it is a full range receiver. The XM is not. And yeah, I've upgraded the firmware which you would need to use in America. D16 with RSSI on channel 16 or channel 8, I don't know. Yeah, it fits in here very nice. Like on the other quad I have the Tramp instead of the Unfiy Pro 5 volt, but yeah, it fits also very good in the frame. Like, doesn't stand out here. It's protected inside of the frame. And the modification I did on the XM Plus is this one is not very straight, but it works. I cut away the shielding, so from a 5th wave to a 4th wave 2.4 GHz antenna, just because I saw the Rotor Riot video where they compared the XSR, which also had a 5th wave antenna, to the X4R, which had a 4th wave. So I decided to use the 4th wave because you get more range out of it. All what you need to do is you need to find out the measurements for a 4th wave 2.4 GHz antenna and just cut away the shielding and you're good to go. Yes. So I'm not gonna take apart this quad. I have one taken apart because this was my main quad and I landed it into water, so I took it apart and cleaned everything out. Yeah, so this is what this quad looks underneath the board, like turned around, turned over. On this one I'm using caps, but you don't need to use caps. I don't see any advantage in using caps other than you're running race flight and you have like crazy electrical noise, but on Betaflight or KISS you don't need to run caps. It's unnecessary. Yeah. One thing I don't like on the Betaflight F3 board is that the pads are very small. Like, I guess it is intended to be used to be soldered to solder on wires on the top and on the bottom, but I like the clean look, so I soldered everything to the bottom. And to prevent anything from shorting out, I used some PMMA, which is plastic, like hard plastic, not hot glue. Same as epoxy, but epoxy is just a pain in the ass to work with because it just sticks to everything. And yeah, I started using PMMA, works amazing, protects the wire, protects the solder joints, so I don't need to be aware of anything breaking off during mid-flight, flying over water, and maybe so I don't need to be aware of anything breaking off and lose a quad when I fly over water, like fail-safe, or lose video or anything like that. On this quad, as I said, I'm using the tramp, so you need to select, like there's a small little jumper and you need to select, for the RAM port you need to select VBED if you're running the tramp, and you need to select 5 volt for the RAM port if you're running a 5 volt video transmitter, just like the Unfiy Pro 5 volt. Yeah, you need to do that and you're good to go. As I've already said, I'm using 14 gauge wire for my main power lead. And I've did a small modification on the frame. I've drilled 2 little holes here, so I can run like a zip tie through the bottom plate to hold. Hello? And put a zip tie around it, around the pigtail, to just hold it in place and not get caught up by the FC in a crash where the battery might get disconnected. Yeah, it works. Also works very well. I prefer to use clear heat shrink over all of my connections, so I can see if I have a bad solder joint, and yeah, I can like prevent anything bad from happening. Let's talk about the motors. These are MrSteele 2306 2350 kV motors. Before them I used the Emax 2306 2400 kV motors, but these motors suck because the magnets came loose during a flight. I had to 7 on 2 different belts. Yeah, the motor isn't as durable, like it will break, or the bell gets like unbalanced in a small crash. Like, don't buy these motors, they suck. Before the Emax I used the T-Motor F60 V2, like the older version. These motors were great too. They essentially use the same magnets as the MrSteele motors. Yeah, but they were a little bit amp hungry in my opinion. Yeah, so I also quit using them. Before them I used the Brother Hobby motors, which are great. Very good motor. Thrust amp consumption is very good. Like, you get a lot of thrust with little amp consumption in perspective to other motors. Yeah, but I had one like a bell dent and I didn't want to buy a replacement because I wanted to try something new. But regardless, these MrSteele motors are smooth and efficient, and will also provide you with good amount of thrust without like destroying all of your gear, destroying batteries. I can't afford, or I can't ask my sponsor every 2 weeks or 2 months for new batteries, just because my motors will kill the batteries and like will over discharge them, or the motors need more power than the battery is able to deliver. So I use the MrSteele because they are smooth and efficient. These props are over, I don't know, maybe 2 years old, and they haven't changed much. They are amazing. The V1S prop is like the one which came after this, which was here to replace the 5x4x3 OG glass nylon prop. I liked it in the beginning. It is efficient, but not as responsive as this one, so I quit using them. Then I started using the 5x4x3 V1S prop, which isn't as responsive as this prop and also not as responsive as the 5x4x3. And then I used the 5x4x3 V3 props with the bullnose, kind of bullnose prop, which is just amp consumption is just out of this world and also not as responsive as this prop. And now I saw that HQProp came out with like the 5x4x8x3 V1S prop, which is even more pitch than the 5x4x3 V3 prop. And yeah, I will probably also not buy them because I don't like high-pitched props, because they will just burn up your batteries, burn up your motors, and are not as responsive, because the prop or the motor will not hit the RPM as they will do on a not so high-pitched prop. So let's talk about the Runcam Swift Mini, or why I use the Runcam Swift Mini. So the one and only reason why I use these cameras is I got them for rather cheap and I bought a lot of them. And yeah, if you see this and you have a Runcam Swift Mini, do the mod. If you buy a Chameleon and you are looking for a camera, then buy a Swift Mini, normal Swift or any HS1177 style camera. Yeah, but if you have a Runcam Swift Mini, then you need to do a little modification in the front section, and you also need to use the included bracket which goes around the Runcam Swift Mini to make it wider so you can fit it in any HS1177 style mount. You do this, put it in the screws. Yeah, so here's the front section. It's dirty from a backup from a main quad, which I'm rebuilding currently. So how do you fit the Runcam Swift Mini inside of the cage or inside of the front section? The front section, or the Armattan Chameleon, comes with some small little inserts to put in the camera. You need to cut, like, I don't have a working one at the moment, but you need to cut away a piece and just use this little rubber insert as a space holder. So you can put the camera in, screw in a screw, just like here, and then you screw in the other screw just like here, and the camera is stuck in the frame. You can't adjust the angle as easy as with a thumb screw, but I don't normally do it. I like to fly with a consistent 35 to 40 degree angle, so I stopped using the the thumb screw. And I might also ask what's his name? And I will also ask Chris from Armattan if he can make the side plates without like this huge hole, just with a small hole, so you can screw in the screw directly and the other screw to adjust the angle. Because if you use like the Swift Mini or the Swift 2, it has like the same function as this one with the 2 screws. One is in there so you are able to like adjust the angle, and the other one is used to set the angle and lock it down. Yes. But I guess that's all you need to know about my Armattan Chameleon, and I'm gonna show you my settings on the PC. Yes, so let's get to it. I don't have an external microphone. I'm recording the audio through like the GoPro internal microphone, so I hope that you guys can't hear the mouse clicks that loud. I've connected the quad or the FC via USB to the PC, and now I'm gonna open up the Betaflight configurator 3.1.2. This is like the version which isn't actually available through Chrome. You need to like install it through like the developer mode. There are plenty of tutorials online which you can look. I will essentially put like a link in the video description from Joshua Bordwell or somebody else. So I'm gonna hit connect. Yeah, setup. Here's nothing to set up. You just go to ports, and the only thing that you need to touch is the UART3 or whatever UART you're using to connect to your VTX. If you're running a TBS Unfiy, you need to select TBS Smart Audio. If you're using Immersion RC Tramp, you need to select Immersion RC Tramp to like change channels and output power. Hit save and reboot. I'm not going to do it right now, and here are my configuration ports. I'm using D-Shot 600 and gyro update and PID loop frequency is set to 2 kHz. I am running OSD and telemetry enabled, and yeah, that's all that you can change here. Power and battery. The only thing that I touched is like the amperage meter. I set it to 239. This is like the most accurate rating I can get to see through the OSD. I didn't touch the voltage meter. PID tuning. Like here are my PIDs. Here's where all the magic happened. Kinda. Here are my rates. Here's the PID control. Here are the P control settings which I've talked about before. Yeah, here are the filter settings, and I've also enabled through the CLI tab the adaptive or active notch filter thing. So yeah, I've set this one to off, but it is actually on and will change the notch filter depending on the motor noise automatically. RSSI channel 16. This also depends on the firmware you're using. If you have the RSI through channel 8, you need to select channel 8. If you have 16, then you need to select 16. Stickman 1000, Stickman Max 2000, Stick Center 1500. Modes. This is like my arm switch, auxiliary 1 and air mode auxiliary 2, so I don't have air mode always active because I set it the PID controller that it is not active at min throttle, because I want to just be able to arm the quad without an active PID controller, so I can test motor directions and whatnot without the flight controller correcting for each movement. Motors tabs, nothing special here. OSD, this is how I've set up my OSD. I have disabled the accelerometer, but I like this artificial horizon just to have like a dot. I don't know, I like to fly with this dot because like it's the center of the screen. Yeah, here's the main battery voltage, the amperage used or the milliamp hour used, the current draw and the RSSI value. I like to have the RSSI value separated from these other values because I like to look at it more frequently than to these values, so I can see when I'm running out of range, because the XM Plus is not a telemetry receiver, so the Taranis won't like warn you through audio when you're losing range. So I have this one like separated from these values. And yeah, the font manager, I have like this the large one enabled. Like it will look like this. Or do I have extra large? No, I have large. Do just hit upload font, and yeah, the FC will reboot. And yeah, this is like the CLI tab, and what you're gonna do is you just need to set this one, and I will put a link with all my settings in the video description, so you can see what kind of like set stuff I've done through the CLI tab. I don't know like the correct command to do this, so you can just like copy this in your through the CLI tab in your Betaflight F3 board. It's very important that you have a Betaflight F3 board. If you're using any other FC with other firmware, or even if you're using the same firmware on a different FC, it will not work. So you need to have the Betaflight F3 and 3.2 to be able to just copy this one and dump it into your what's it called, into your flight controller. So yeah, and this is pretty much like the end of the video. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you could understand everything, because English is not my native language. I'm living in Germany. And yeah, if you still have any more questions, then leave them into the comment section. I will try my best to answer every comment or any question. And yeah, maybe you can leave a like or even subscribe, or maybe say stuff that I need to change in my further uploads.